Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now, today's first story comes from Weak Signal 99 from the True Off My Chest subreddit. And before we do get into the story, there is talk of death within the story, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. It's titled, "My negligence cost my partner her life, and I am about to lose everything." I, 35 male, have been married to Lisa, 28 female, for 3 years, together 7. A year ago, I fell deeply in love with Amy, 24 female, had been planning to end my marriage for her. I know it's terrible and not what my wife deserves, but we were the real thing. 2 weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction when we were getting food after work, but she used her EpiPen and seemed mostly okay afterwards. She usually checked in at the hospital after a reaction, but I asked if I could take her home, and she could get her friend to drive her there because my wife was expecting me back. All I know is that she had a secondary reaction that evening and died. I didn't even find out about it until the following Monday through a work email. It has been eating me up ever since, and I will never forgive myself for not sacrificing an hour of my time to possibly save her. I sent some childish messages to Amy when I didn't hear from her over the weekend because I thought she was angry I didn't take her to the hospital. I'm thankful she never saw them and ashamed that I assumed the worst. Our relationship was great and the highs far outweighed the lows. I have always hated being ignored and lose my cool when it happens. It's not a regular occurrence, and I would have more than made it up to her. Yesterday at work, HR and legal were in this CEO's office all day, and my manager ended up cancelling our project meeting because he was with them all afternoon. I was on edge, but an affair isn't exactly a corporate crisis. I thought something would have already happened if anyone knew. I am now 99% certain it was about me. A few hours ago, I received a message from Amy's phone which said, "This is Amy's brother, Tom. I want you to know it was me." I tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail, and none of the messages have been delivered. I tried to call my manager more times than I should have, and he sent a message saying, "Please don't contact me until Monday morning. I can't discuss anything with you right now." So it looks like my universe is going to collapse. I'm going to be fired, and my wife will definitely find out why. All I can do is hope that Amy's brother only showed them the messages from that weekend, and they were all bad enough. I have no family except my wife and daughter, and nowhere to go. All of my friends are either people I've met through my wife or my colleagues. On Monday, everything I've spent over a decade working towards disappears. I can't stop it. I can't talk to anyone about it. So here I am. I know cheaters are the devil, so I'm not expecting sympathy. But this is making my chest hurt and I need to get it out there. So there was a string of comments, the top comments, and people were replying to one another. Extension Fun started off saying, "Tom has real Elena Tyrell energy. True king shit." White Rose's reply saying, "Realistically, I can't blame him. His sister is dead because Cheaty McCheater face over here had other things to do. He can't have him arrested, but he can otherwise ruin his life. OP, the absolute worst thing here isn't losing your wife, family, job or support system. It's living with your guilt. Best of luck." Agents of Fangirling says this, except the last part. Worst of luck actually. Here for Mysteries says, "Can you imagine your beautiful, sweet daughter marrying a man who she thought loved her? He made vows to her and had a child with her. Only he found a young, impressionable little thing at work who he decided was 1% better than her, and therefore was worth neglecting her and their child. Cheating on her for, risking his job by getting a promotion she wasn't qualified for and was planning to leave for. This person was only 1% better. Your daughter, cheated on by a piece of shit who only thought with his dick. What would you say about that?" Opie replies saying, "Amy was not a child. She was an adult woman who was capable of making decisions for herself, had every intention of building a life together as equals." MSP says, "You're making it very clear that you were anywhere close to be a gentleman with your mistress. You blackmailed her and threatened to blacklist her. I'm going to bet you coerced her to have sexual contact. Man, was your father this shitty to his mistress as well?" OP says those arguments went both ways, and there are plenty of messages as well as my actions which show I treated her extremely well. Why would she commit to building a life with me if I was horrible to her? She had all the power. MSP replies saying, you threatened to blacklist her. You had all the power. OP says she had months and months of evidence of our relationship, including intimate images of us together. I may have been higher up at work, but it is completely fair to say she was the one with the power. My life is about to be ruined, and she could have pulled that trigger anytime she wanted. I also didn't actually threaten her. It was a stupid comment about what would happen if our relationship came out, as well as another I incorrectly believed she was having. It's not exactly a threat to remind someone that sleeping with multiple managers in a niche industry isn't a smart career move if it comes out. MSP replies again saying, you threatened her. You intimidated her. You were willing to take her down to save yourself. She was in no danger beyond losing her job if this came out. You, on the other hand, would lose it all in your industry. You will never be trusted. You know why she didn't come clean. Because she trusted that you would have left Lisa for her. If you left Lisa and got together with your mistress, it would have all come out anyway. You were so worried about your life, what the two lives you're about to completely ruin. OP says, you seriously think losing a job is the worst thing that would have happened if it came out she had a habit of sleeping with managers to get where she was? Her career would have been over right there with mine. Just because I was more senior in the business, it doesn't mean I was in a position of power. She could have taken us both down just like I could have. We were completely on equal footing. We were desperate for her to be some weakling who just mindlessly went along with it all. She was an intelligent and capable person who signed up to us navigating this situation together. We were a team. She replies saying, you literally fucking promoted her, you moron. That is a definition of having power. Her career was in your hands and you both knew it. OP responds saying surely getting a promotion she didn't deserve was an example of her power and not mine. I had faith she would grow into the role because she assured me she would. She took the lead in that whole situation. Like I said, my career was in her hands too, but I had much more to lose. I was more established in my career, have a wife and child, own a home, etc. Power was never a consideration between us. We were always equals. The asshole judge says, no, it was an example of you rewarding her for gobbling your knob. OP says, is buying your partner a birthday present rewarding them too? Is taking your partner on holiday just them cashing in their knob gobbling air miles? Showing care and support to someone you love isn't transactional, and it doesn't happen because you owe them one. Everything I did for Amy I did because I loved her. She replied again and says, your relationship was inherently abusive. Everything about it, starting with the way it was set up. You fell in love, yeah, I bet, with a woman 12 years your junior, promoted her unethically, and then fucking blackmailed her with that promotion. Whether you physically assaulted her or not is irrelevant. OP says I never blackmailed her with promotion. I shouldn't have set it up in the first place, and it wasn't going to last. Our messages show me telling her honestly when she first brought it up that I didn't think she had the skills or experience to make it work. She gave me lots of assurances and basically talked me into it. That is reflected in our messages. I did bring it up a few times in arguments, but I wasn't suggesting that she would have been demoted because of problems in our relationship. It was always because of her performance in the role and the way she secured it. Obviously, that wasn't an appropriate arena to raise what were real issues that didn't relate to our romantic involvement. I have to say, the way the dude talks in this story it comes across really worrying for me. He's claiming that he's not in a position of power, yet he's a senior, got promoted, also a lot older than Amy was as well. And the language is just like, it's all about him still. And I know it's the true off my chest subreddit, so they're just letting everything out what they're thinking, but you know, I'm going to have to live with the guilt on Monday. Everything that I've spent a decade working towards disappears. Not about the people that he's hurt or going to hurt. But OP came in sometime later with an update and says, I'd been consistently harassed for an update since posting, so please take it. Gloat because you're such wonderful people in comparison, then stop following me around Reddit. I'm suffering in the wake of my infidelity and unprofessional behavior as I knew I would. I understand that is an appropriate outcome and I'm taking full accountability. I was suspended from work on Monday and I'll probably be fired sooner than I thought. I'd hoped to be able to save money as HR built their case, but it looks like Amy's brother basically performed the entire investigation for them. After an excruciating 3-hour run-through of everything they had, I spoke to the founder, and he recommended the solicitor I am now using. The issue is the company has come down hard to protect themselves, because even though Amy's family doesn't have much chance of a claim, any suggestion of a cover-up could cause damage regardless. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court, and some more information has come to light, so it's not certain I won't be prosecuted, but I'm quietly hopeful. I can't afford to keep the solicitor if this goes much further, especially with a divorce on the horizon. Things are not good with my wife. I'm still committed to making this as easy as possible for her, but I had to draw a line when it came to my daughter. When I got home from being unceremoniously escorted out of my office, she already had a bag packed for me. She wouldn't let me wait at the house until my daughter was back. She wouldn't let me check I had everything I needed. She wouldn't let me take the car, and she didn't care that I had nowhere to go. I spent 2 nights in a hotel, then went back when she refused to let me see my little girl. She tried to stop me, but we own the house jointly, and that was my only option. My wife has family she could stay with, but she won't leave our daughter here, and she's absolutely not taking her. So we're at a stalemate right now. I'm keeping out of her way as best as I can, which I appreciate is the least I can do. The Amy situation is quite difficult to talk about, and a lot hasn't sunk in yet. It turns out that she didn't love me as much as I loved her, if at all. Her brother sent me images of her talking to her friends about me. It's hard to believe they came from the person I loved, but they are real. Sorry to those who were heavily invested in me being a predatory abuser, but she and her friends had a good laugh about her manipulating me for money and a promotion. The role came with a big pay rise, and it looks like her plan was to treat it as free cash, then go work with one of her friends when it fell through. She knew I'd come under scrutiny whenever she messed up and assumed I'd keep stepping in to save her, and she was right. Obviously, I'm completely humiliated. I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. My feelings are complicated, so please don't feel entitled to any expansion on this, but I no longer feel guilt over her death. Reddit acted like I kept her hostage while she begged for help. What actually happened was that I asked if she could ask her friend to take her to the hospital because I had to go home. She said that was fine because she needed to get some clothes back from her anyway, and I dropped her off as normal. Ultimately, she was an adult who had a better understanding of her medical needs than I did. I still don't know what happened between us saying goodbye and her death, but whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. I'm sorry for her family's loss, but I bear no responsibility for her passing. After Amy's messages to her friends were passed around, a few people quietly reached out with words of support. I assumed everyone would write me off like Reddit did, as an abuser and a predator. Now it's clear that Amy was using me. They see me as a fool who had then lost it all. It's beyond humiliating, but I have learned I'd rather be pitied than despised, and it proves my legal position with work. They're all mercies, but I'll take what I can get. I remain filled with regrets, and I will have learned many lessons by the time I get through this. I may have been deceived, but I'm a grown man who made my choices, and I take full responsibility for them. So Nervous asked a question. They said, in quotes, the founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court, and then says, so did you steal money from your company on top of abusing your authority at work? Opie says my expense account largely funded my relationship with Amy. It wasn't unusual in the company we worked at, but now there is a potential scandal. They're suddenly shocked and appalled by my actions. Talk to Me says he was using company funds to fund all of their little trips. So he's hoping if he pays back the funds he embezzled, they won't file suit. He plotted how to cover it up many text messages to his soulmate. Buffoon. Direct Surprise says, boy, he sure is all kinds of stupid, isn't he? Talk to Me Replies says, but you don't understand. Their bodies fit together like puzzle pieces. Sketch Bender says, Bro went from she was the love of my life to she's responsible for her own death in under a week. This post reads exactly like how I imagined it would. The Cinema says, in quotes, I want to make this as easy as possible on my wife, and then says, but also in refusing to leave our house, she also has to see me, the person that was planning on leaving her and imploded our lives because I didn't think through inevitable consequences. And OP leaves a bunch of comments that say, I have certain legal rights I was willing not to use in order to make this easier for my wife to navigate, which apabsolutely appropriate given that my actions caused the entire problem. Living in my home was the most relevant one. I left immediately and by choice, and the only thing I asked for was regular access to my daughter until we made a formal arrangement. She didn't provide that access, and she gave a stupid and petty reason for not doing so. I had one single, solitary and perfectly reasonable boundary, and she didn't respect it. Now I use the right I always had to live in the house I own. I understand that I'm not exactly in a sympathetic position, but if you're genuinely a reasonable person, I don't think this is one for the reasons OP is a bad person list. I didn't refuse to leave the house. I left unwillingly and immediately and had no intention of going back, despite the fact that I own the home jointly. I had one condition, and it was completely reasonable, that I allowed to be spend time with my daughter regularly. My wife declined, so I was left with two choices: go without seeing my daughter indefinitely, or move back into the house I had every right to occupy. Easiest decision I've ever made. In short, no. My wife and her feelings are entirely separate from our daughter. I made it clear I didn't expect access to our home. I would only contact her about our daughter, and that as long as I had reasonable unrestricted access, she would remain in the driving seat throughout this whole process. She fell at the first hurdle and denied me access, so things have changed and I make no apology for that. OP also says my solicitor told me very early that being completely truthful would benefit my case. You know what I did in response to that? I was completely truthful, because it was made clear to me that it would make my life easier. My wife was basically told the thing. Only me seeing my daughter is what would have put her in the best position. She chose to go against that, and now she's living with the results of that. I'm not going to be vindictive at any point here because I'm well aware the situation is largely of my own making, but I'm going to make it extremely clear that my child will not be weaponized against me. My wife's discomfort is not a consideration in this one specific area. Don't Speak My Name replies to that and says, actually curious, why do you think your wife should trust you with your daughter? Should she not be concerned after having her entire world turned upside down by you? OP says, you're asking the wrong question. She doesn't have to trust me with my daughter because she is not the sole decision maker on that front. If she had genuine concerns about me being around our child, she could launch an emergency petition for sole custody. She won't though, because she knows she doesn't have a leg to stand on. Again, being a bad husband doesn't make me a bad father. I think that's bullshit if I'm being completely honest. Everything you've done is going to have a knock-on effect to your child. You've hurt your wife, the child's mother. You've destroyed your family, and again, it's going to have a knock-on effect to your child. You've destroyed your job, and your financial stability, again, is going to have a knock-on effect to your child. And again, I don't know the full ins and outs of everything of OP's life, but he clearly took time away to spend it with his affair partner, time away from his kid and family. Again, another knock-on effect. It just feels like narcissism all the way through. It just feels like he's making himself to be the victim all the way through, doubling down, doesn't like the negative comments against him, even though admits himself that he's fucked up, but I'm not sure if he truly believes it. And there was another commenter who was curious about the way this guy was talking. While Luigi's tennis ball says, I needed some more context, so I had a look at his comment history. He used his expense account at work to fund his relationship, to keep it separate from his personal finances so his wife wouldn't find out. He texts with his affair partner extensively about how to make their dates look like legitimate expenses. He isn't just her superior at work. He's her boss's boss. He engineered a promotion for her to a role he thought she wasn't capable of doing. Then he brought up how she'd lose her job if it ever came out. During arguments, he also joked about how owing him sex because of the promotion. He missed a funeral for his sister-in-law's stillborn baby because he had plans with his affair partner that had made months in advance. He thinks he's not going to get prosecuted for embezzlement because he can pay his employer back. He apparently has dirt on them. With the anaphylaxis, he didn't know that you had to go to hospital after you use an EpiPen, and they stayed at the restaurant for a while after a reaction, with her saying she'd be fine and she'd just feel rough the next day. For some reason, nobody called an ambulance despite being in the UK, and it's not costing any money. The hospital was a half-hour drive away, and just dropping her off there would have made him an hour late getting home. Obviously longer if he stayed at the hospital. For some reason, he couldn't tell his wife that someone had a medical emergency and he took them to the hospital. Honestly, I'm just lost for words on this guy. If there's someone wandering around out there with this kind of I know there's loads of them actually, but holy shit, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.